course, I gotta get the work in while I'm at the cottage. Just waiting for Joey to get on and then we'll get started. Hey man,
What's up?
how you doing?
I'm good. How
Good,
are
I'm
you?
good. What have you been doing to keep busy?
A whole bunch of stuff. Recently started training with my friend who's at a training center,
Okay.
John Obi. Uh, After quarantining for 14 days, I've dove into a little bit of photography stuff. So, been on my walks whenever I'm outside, just taking pictures of stuff, learning about editing, visual
That-
side, keeping busy.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah.
All right, let's get right into your introduction. So for everyone that doesn't know, this is Joey Jarvis. Joey spent some time playing at the club from 16U to 18U. Um, Joey has an interesting story because he didn't actually play any varsity volleyball in university or college. Joey's played in the one volleyball league. He now plays professionally in Germany. You play on the national B team, and then you also spend some time at the full-time training center.
Yeah.
And so I guess to get things started off, how did you start playing volleyball?
How did I start? Interesting journey. Um, Elementary school. It was at the time it was just a sport before basketball, and then my brother, older brother, ended up playing, and seeing the physicality you can actually put into that sport makes it a lot different
Yeah,
than what people actually perceive. Usually for them it's a nice fluffy ball on the beach smacking it around, but when you actually see balls being hit over like 120K, you start fearing for your life and understand the sport differently.
for sure. And I guess
Yeah.
how were you first introduced to the club?
Um, we played against Pac-Man 14U, 15U,
Right,
and after my 15U year, me and my teammate Danny Lee, my beach partner, were like, hey, if we want to train, want to get better, might as well go to the best club. So I ended up playing for Region 5 that year, and
right,
Nathan and a couple other Pac-Man guys had played. I told him we are
right.
coming. He's like, perfect. And um, we pretty much put the plan together, how we are going to get there, everything, and we tried out. We made the push from Vaughan all the way to Mississauga.
Right. And so where
But
did
it
you
was worth it.
play?
It was
Where
worth
did
it.
you play beforehand?
Beforehand, I played for Vaughan Wolfpack. Two of my high school teachers put
Hmm.
together a team, and that's where I played from 14U and 15U. And it taught me a lot, but I wanted the extra push, a little
That
bit more
extra
knowledge of the game.
for sure.
Yeah.
And then I guess just because obviously you're talking about your high school coach starting things up. What high school did you go to?
St. John de Brebeuf in Vaughan.
Okay. And did you guys have a good team or?
Uh, Essentially, that club team was started to bridge the gap between like the usual elementary 4-2 system
Yeah.
And in high school, to jump right into 5-1. So he started us out in 14U to pretty much help introduce us to the next level of ball. And that's pretty much where the transition happened.
Right.
And yeah.
That was really it. And I guess looking at your time with Pac-Man, so you would have spent some time with them playing Region 5 and stuff. But given that you played there from 16U to 18U, what was your bond like throughout the years playing with them?
Pac-Man back then was a very dog eat dog experience. And once you actually become a part of the Pac-Man family, you start to understand. Like in the beginning, walking into the gym, kinda, it was just Danny and I. You know, guys didn't really say hi to start and whatnot. And then you start playing, start showing your skills a bit, and then respect comes like anything in life. You know, when you prove yourself, that's when things happen. But after becoming a part of the Pac-Man team and just seeing how things worked, you kind of understand that each player kind of holds himself to a different standard.
Right.
Like they're not just there to be the best player in the gym. They're there to win medals, win championships, ultimately go on to do more than just play club. So
Right.
you start to understand that when you find people who are like-minded, you kind of stick to those people.
For
So
sure.
once you kind of show them that, hey, you know, I want to be a part of this, I'm a part of the bigger picture, then they completely embrace you and stuff. And it was, in the beginning, it was kind of scary, I'll be honest.
Yeah.
But as you get used to it, man, it's a big, loving family. Everyone just practices got very, very aggressive.
Yeah.
Um, Not physicality like fighting, but guys just having the drive not to lose, not to make balls drop. Rallies are lasting crazy long, and that's when you start to understand the difference between teams that want to be good and teams that want to be great.
For
So
sure.
just that environment was
And so
crazy.
I guess looking at your time with the club, right, when you guys were 16, you guys were able to win provincials and nationals. And then, and speaking to Kelly, Kelly told me that 17U, 18U, you guys should have probably won both. You guys were favorites to win 17U and 18U. So I guess maybe you can talk me through the experience when you guys were 16U, just kind of winning your first year there, winning everything.
Um, 16U, I didn't play nationals and provincials.
Right.
Um, Coming in 17, 18U, it was crazy. Like just coming off of the season where they went undefeated pretty much, only dropped sets. Our first loss in 17U was um, the last game on the first day at provincials.
Right.
So before that, pretty much 2 years undefeated,
Hmm.
only dropping sets, which is crazy in any experience.
Yeah, definitely.
But I think the the thing that we were lacking then, that I understand now, especially after being at the training center, was the mental aspect. Um, when we were down, at times we played like we were down, and when we were up, we were a completely different team.
Right.
So the biggest thing I'd say, which is a skill you develop over time. I mean, at 21, 22, I was still learning a little
Yeah,
bit
you're
more
still
mental
learning all that.
toughness, you know,
Yeah,
we're still learning. But I think one thing that stopped us from actually getting the medals we were supposed to get was just the mental aspect of it. We had this ball control, we had the skills, we had the game plan. Kelly and his coaching staff, amazing. We had video, everything was broken down. But
right.
when it comes down to controlling your inner
Emotions. Yeah,
emotion, it was just, yeah, that was the one thing we lacked, I think. Especially kids coming up, if they can learn how to control that, opportunities are endless for them.
for sure. And so I guess I'm looking at your 17 or 18U team in specific, right? Obviously, your team had a lot of talent. Two names that come to mind for
Yeah.
me is Nathan Murdoch and Brandon Coppers. What was it? What was it like to kind of train alongside those two guys and practice with them and compete with them?
Nathan was just an animal. Uh, Nathan, he brought the whole Shaquille O'Neal style attitude to volleyball.
Yeah,
Anybody who scored on us, you'd see no smile, no teeth coming out of Nathan until he scored the next ball.
Right.
Nathan was like probably the hungriest guy I've ever seen go after a ball, especially when it came to blocking. Kelly really put a lot of emphasis on being over, not just being high. So especially warm up, Nathan would just sometimes go over and try to touch his toes across the net. I was like, okay, we understand. But we had pictures from Alibero, Sean, his mom. Nathan is borderline grabbing the ball
Grabbing the
when
ball, yeah.
someone's
I've
about to
seen a
hit
couple
a red
pictures,
sled
and
ball.
it's
Yeah,
unreal.
yeah. So Nathan was just an animal when it came to the game. He looked at every opportunity as a challenge. Especially, we were the team that started up after the Bramwells, the Deerings, the
Yeah.
Jesse Saddies,
Yeah.
the Kadeems. Especially when Terrell was around, he gave himself that extra push. Like, he didn't want to be in Terrell's shadow, you know. This is the team, the next team compared to them. He wanted to be his own
He
specimen,
wanted
which
to
he
be his
was.
own team, right?
Yeah, he took it as a challenge. And then Brandon Coppers, he's just a special athlete. He had like 99 ball control from the time I met him.
Right.
He was probably one of the best passing middles at the time. And then because of his ability and for longevity of the sport, at 6'7", middle, he got moved to outside in his
To the
18th year.
outside, yeah.
And was still killing it.
For sure.
Passing, crazy, great, extremely good blocker. Yeah, but he's also full of energy. Like when BK was playing, the whole gym knew, especially if he scored a point.
Yeah,
He'd just go crazy for everything. And he's also a workhorse. When it comes to him training, especially being with him on the national team this past summer, BK is an extreme workhorse. Especially when he went down to drills, even digging. If we had to get, I don't know, 6 out of 10 digs and BK missed one that he thought he could get, he's yelling, going nuts. But it's just seeing an extra push. But having guys like that around you is crazy.
Yeah, no, for sure. And you touched a little bit that Kelly and his coaching staff really emphasize on blocking, right, for your team.
Yeah.
Maybe you can give me a little bit of background about kind of like what it was like to have Deem and Kelly as your two coaches.
Deem is probably one of the most underrated assistant coaches I've ever had. Because 17, 18U, where I was carpool with Deem, Deem was the first coach that actually made volleyball look like or sound like science.
Yeah.
Like Deem was a coach, he was a player, he was a referee, all in one. I remember we went all the way to Kingston for a tournament, and Deem earned us, I kid you not, maybe 8 points in that tournament. Screaming out of rotation before the ref blew the whistle to toss the serve, and by the time the ref looks across, blows the whistle out of rotation. I'm like, Deem, you know, let him see it first.
Yeah.
And even the way he looks at play, like he one guy who really knows the game inside out, and he's super humble about it.
For sure.
He's not very aggressive in how he approaches the game, but he really, really knows and understands the game.
He knows what he's talking about.
When it comes to rotations, anything, that man does not miss anything.
Yeah, he's not missing anything. We had him as a coach too. He was like, you don't miss a thing.
Yeah, he's very detail oriented. And then you got coaches like Jesse came in a couple times to help out with Ricky with his setting, just his mentality, how he's working footwork.
Right.
We had Kadeem come in. Got a couple coaches come in, Phil. And his coaching staff, the biggest thing they bring besides experience, which I think is underrated, is the maturity and what's the word? How they articulate themselves. So if I was to be a science major, you know, and I'm speaking a whole bunch of chemical names, you're not gonna understand if you don't speak that. Like for example, Kadeem or Jesse coming in, Jesse's like, hey, when you're blocking, flex your core. That's something anybody can understand, even at 12 years old.
Yeah.
And flexing my core gives you a lot stronger block. All of a sudden, rather than the ball hitting your hands and you flying, the ball's being blocked straight down. You're getting the blocks you want to see.
For sure.
So even the way they paint the picture for players, I think, is second to none. They all have the experience. They all have the drive for the game. But how they go about teaching the players the skills is one thing that I really respected about them.
Right. And so I was told here, Suck wrote in the question box to ask about your Iceland trip.
Oh, Iceland. The Goonies, the guys I played with since I was 18, my family, love those guys. We went to Iceland. It was a mini international, and we're pretty much representing Canada.
Right.
And it was a crazy experience. We went in there, and the biggest thing that I always carried with myself is I'm the youngest of 4 brothers. So the biggest thing I always carried with myself is go out there and make a name for yourself. So, when I started playing volleyball, it was you were so-and-so's younger brother or this and that. So we went out there and we tried to make a name for ourselves. And depending on who asked the question, we had a great tournament.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's where we clicked again. We added a couple pieces to the team, but we went out there fearless. We played against a 3rd division professional Polish team.
Mm-hmm.
We played against a university from UK, and we held our own. I mean, we went to 5 sets. I remember cramping in the 3rd set after hitting a pipe. I crawled off the court. I hit the pipe, we scored, and while they were celebrating, I was crawling off the court to the side because I couldn't straighten my leg. We ended up going to 5, and honestly, it was a crazy experience. I remember that game. It was 14-13. Someone gets set a D ball, and I'm on the bench because my leg was cramped. I'm like, guys, I can't do it.
Right.
So someone playing back for me. We got tooled off of a C ball, and I remember my eyes starting to water.
Right.
I felt like I let my team down. I should have been on the court. And I kid you not, it was like a movie scenario. The down ref blows the whistle, and he calls the back row player over.
Right.
So the point we just lost kind of unfolds. I felt like the tears just ran back up.
Mm-hmm. And you felt good again, right?
Yeah. We ended up winning the next 2 points and went on to the semis. But Iceland was a crazy trip. Iceland tournament is where I got in contact with a lot of players from other countries, kind of start to understand what the European style of volleyball is versus what we're taught here. And it really exposed me to a lot of people, a lot of players, and the overall game, especially at a young age.
And so Ellie Shermer had asked a question. I actually really like this one. What kept you going to take your game to the next level without playing any varsity volleyball?
Sorry, one more time.
It was what kept you going to take your game to the next level without playing any varsity volleyball?
What kept me going? A lot of things. But the biggest thing is one of my favorite quotes is, when writing the story of your own life, don't let anyone else hold the pen. And essentially what that means to me is I don't need to follow everybody's systematic way of getting to where I want to get to.
Right.
Even though I hadn't followed their script or, did what everyone else did, made the Team Ontario's. I've never been to a Team Ontario tryout, anything. Right. And I still said, you know what? I can get there as long as my skills match up where they need to be. So going around, even at my last nationals coaching, seeing BK, someone I played with in a Team Canada uniform, it's like, hey, we were teammates. Or seeing other players on the podium winning medals, and it's like, what's stopping me from getting there?
Yeah.
Especially as Kevin Durant said, the year he won MVP, he said he just got so tired of being second place.
Yeah.
He said on his high school team he was second best, and his college team was second best. Come to the NBA, it's like KD, LeBron at the time, and he's like, why do I got to be second? It's great, being second out of 100 people, or being second in the world. But it's like eventually, sometimes you want to be number one.
For sure.
Kind of just that constant push of not wanting to be second and just pushing past all the noise, everyone telling you can't, you got to do this, you got to do that. It's like, that's what you were told, and that's why you stuck to that mold. There's other ways to get to where you need to get to. So just the constant drive of wanting to be better, seeing people who I played with go on to do bigger things. And it's like, what's stopping me?
For sure. Yeah. And did you find while playing with the B team, right? Obviously, you would have played with a bunch of guys who had a lot of varsity experiences. Do you feel like maybe sometimes you missed like you maybe missed a thing or two not playing varsity or
Um, no. Where I felt like I was well behind was when I first started the training center,
right?
because most of the guys there came from playing university and college. So
Right.
they got all that systematic stuff and whatnot. Whereas me, it's like, hey, come play a tournament, we need an outside.
Right.
And then here you gotta, we're blocking this because he hits this. And because he only can hit cross court, we're gonna leave the line, which means six are gonna step here. And now all of a sudden the game became algebra. And I was like, all right.
Yeah.
But having Dan is really, really technical with everything.
Right.
So being under Dan, like 8 months before heading to tryouts, heading into my pro season, was a big help in everything. Coming to the B team, even the stuff we did there, it was all because at the training center they pretty much run the same system the national team does.
Right. Yeah.
So everything we're doing on the B team was stuff that I'd already been practicing for 9 months.
Right.
So I guess the biggest setback for me, or the biggest wake up call, was when I got to the training center and actually understood technical volleyball.
Right.
And that was when I actually started looking at the game differently, trying to help other people. Because what gets you an All Canadian or a U Sports medal is not what's going to get you to the A team.
For sure. Yeah.
Because even at the highest university level, it's going to be different than what it takes to get to the highest level in our country or in the world.
Right.
So understanding that even after being the best player in the gym that you play in, there's still going to be gyms where you go in and you're the smallest person.
Right. Yeah.
So for me, I just treat everything as like a learning experience and opportunity. So I never kind of went in and said, hey, I shouldn't be here or they're better than me. It was kind of, okay, he's a really good attacker. What is he doing and I'm not? Okay, he's a
Right.
good blocker. What is he doing and I'm not?
Yeah.
Pretty
So
much
kind of
just picking
learning
information
from
from
different
people.
guys, right?
Yeah.
So you mentioned Dan Lewis there. I guess maybe you can give me a little rundown of what your day to day life was like while you were at FTC.
Day to day, first things first, Dan is the biggest clown, serious, technical person you ever meet. He's like a whole bunch of emotion bundled up in one. It's like he's wearing the coaching uniform, but he still wants to be the player. He'll celebrate more animated than any person in the gym sometimes.
Right.
But being around Dan, if you have the right mindset, he is the greatest catalyst you could ever have. He'll help you reach your goals. If you have the wrong mindset, he's the greatest catalyst you can ever have. He will make sure you get to where you want to get to.
For sure.
He doesn't joke around when it comes to uh, his time. Wow, Jesse.
You can
He
answer
doesn't
that
joke
one
around when
after.
it
You can
comes
answer that one after.
to, I'll answer that one after. um, so on an average day, like a Monday, we come in, receivers are on court first, then the the opposite setters are lifting, and it's all technical stuff. Dan's focus is consistency and efficiency. So if you're swinging your arms to receive, and that's been what's helping you from 18U till now, what happens when the pace gets faster and you got guys hitting an average of 120K? You can't swing anymore.
Right.
So he's pretty much broke down every detail of the game for consistency to make sure when you're handling serves at the highest level and you're handling balls at the lowest level, you have that same consistent touch on the ball, whether it's attacking, whether it's anything. So getting those touches in the morning really helps you understand the game. Even all the drills he does for the fun games, it's kind of like the Karate Kid experience, the whole wax on, wax off.
Yeah.
And then he starts fighting and it's like, oh, this actually works. All the
Right.
games we played where even the introduction of the ball, Dan would throw it to like the back wall and you got to kind of throw it on the net where your teammate can joust and you're playing twos. And it comes to the game, someone mishandles the first ball and that ball's played perfectly on the net and we're scoring points and converting stuff. So everything about like Dan and his planning really helped me, really helped the team, really helped the guys grow. And it's honestly one of the biggest jumps I've made being at the full-time training center.
Right.
Going from being the fiery player I was to being the fiery player, but also understanding how to take control of my part of the game.
Right. Yeah.
So it helped a lot being with him.
And
Yeah.
then I guess going to Jesse's question, what was it like to room with
This
Paolo?
question?
I feel like there was maybe a little bit of mentorship there, just given that you had maybe been there for a year already and Paolo was just getting there.
No, we both got there at the same time.
Oh, did you? Okay.
Yeah. So Matthew Powell was he was a very interesting roommate. The biggest thing I'll say, I respect him a lot. He's an extremely talented player, especially being under Jesse. And I quote, this is not a joke, Dan actually said, and Dan being the assistant coach of the A team,
Yeah.
Dan said Powell has the fastest 51 in the country.
Right.
This is Dan Lewis saying that. So it actually took months before our setters kind of figure out what exactly he wanted. But he was pretty much, because he's running it so fast, the other blockers had no choice but to commit.
Right.
Because he's so skinny and he gets up pretty quick, he's a fast arm. If you didn't commit, that ball was through the floor before you
Yeah, it was gone, right?
Yeah, and then him learning pushes and 51s where he's just flying by middles and bouncing balls. And he's a very, very talented player. When he puts his mind to it and he's in the game, he's an animal. And
Yeah,
he's so
good.
fast. Especially
For
lateral
sure.
movement is so fast. Respect him a lot.
Sure.
Living with him, on the other hand, he loves to have fun.
Yeah.
He loves to game. He loves to eat Lucky Charms.
He loves his
my
2K,
goodness.
right? He loves his 2K.
He loves 2K. Loves his 2K.
Yeah.
But yeah, off the court, he just like to have fun. But on the court, he's extremely talented player.
And then I guess moving on to from your FTC experience, I want to talk a little bit about your one volleyball experience, right? That's probably the closest thing we have in Ontario, specifically to like professional volleyball, right? Given you're playing against guys who have come back from overseas, and then you've got guys that have played on the national team. You've got guys who've had very successfully varsity careers. How has that experience been playing in that league?
The biggest thing for me was seeing a lot of guys I watched growing up, like the guys from McMaster's, from New York, from Western, all around. That was pretty much my way of saying, where do I measure up against the players who are trying to play pro or pro caliber?
Right.
So my first year one volleyball, I was 21. No varsity experience, playing against, the Terrells, the Andre Browns, who also played Pac.
Yeah.
The Joey Mantas, the Marcos, all those guys who played varsity.
And then even
like,
you've got current varsity players too, right? You've got a bunch of current varsity players that were playing at the time as well.
Yeah, current varsity players. My first experience, I got on the court as an outside and starstruck. My first time ever in my life being so starstruck. Everything just went wrong. Passing was horrible. Attacking was horrible. Blocking was horrible. Serving was horrible.
Right.
And I remember Erin just telling me yesterday, she's like, yeah, you played horrible today, but, it's your first experience. Let it go. Don't worry, you got this.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, at the time, Rusty had pulled us back, our opposite. So it's like, my first time playing opposite was when I got to Pac-Man, embraced it, learned a lot. Then going to play opposite again, I was like, oh, I did this before. But playing club and playing one league was very different in my first year.
For sure.
And even understanding the game, if you don't have an opposite who can score, your overall chance of winning just goes down. Especially if they're back row and they don't have a dominant C-ball, then blockers just shift over and it's game over. Went well. Learning in that league, playing against guys, just constantly battling the rate. I mean, that was my first time where opposites had to help out with middle.
Right.
So the first game when I was playing opposite, to my left, I have Andre Brown, animal. And in front of me, I have Ray Zito. So I got to help him when they're running a 31 overload And if I miss
Overload, yeah.
either one, the ball's gonna hit the floor.
Yeah, because both of them are
So that was
fantastic, like are amazing athletes, are amazing volleyball players, right?
amazing players. So even having that experience was crazy. But to end the league, I pretty much kept pushing, learning more, just watching game tape, trying to get better. Ended up finishing in a good spot. I finished fourth in scoring and second in blocking. I was first out of all the outside blockers
Right.
and kind of made a good name for myself in that league. And then after that year, being under Brenda, who was also played for the national team back then, she pretty much said, "Hey, if pro's what you want to do, um, this is what you should do," and pretty much walked me through, a lot of the things I need to do before I got to that level. And
Right.
that's also how I got in contact with Dan Lewis and the whole full-time training center. So one league was pretty much a big stepping stone. I even had coaches messaging me from different universities all over the country because
Right.
at the time I was 21, just finished my first year one league, and I had 5 years eligibility.
You had 5 years of eligibility, yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, technically I still had four. I still have four because I only played 1 year overseas, but
Hmm.
at the time it was a crazy experience, kind of just seeing where I leveled up against everyone and seeing what I was able to do with the little knowledge I had.
Right.
So even that was also a wake-up call for me, trying to say, you don't have to do what everyone else did to get to where you want to get to.
For sure. And then kind of moving on to your national B team experience, right? So obviously you went from the one volleyball league to FTC and then obviously to the B team. This past summer,
Yeah.
obviously you spent some time with a lot of guys who've had really successful youth sport careers and stuff. What were those practices like, and what were kind of like the competitions like?
Um, Making the B team is a completely different mindset than people think. A lot of the guys on the B team, they're focused on getting to the next level, which
Yeah.
will be the A team, then a fish, then ultimately the traveling roster for the A team.
Hmm.
So being in a gym with people who set the bar higher than what the average person can see is a completely different experience. So when you're okay with a three pass because your team scored, these guys are only settling for fours. You know,
That.
on a very aggressive serve where you're happy
Yeah.
you just got it up. These guys are trying to push the limit. Get it just inside the attack line, make sure we can run our um our options, and ultimately just trying to take in all the knowledge from what everybody was good at, like being around Dre Foreman, very fearless defender. Then Jeremy Davies, great ball control, libero. Then being around
Hmm.
the Lepkeys, the Derek Epps, the Byrons,
Hmm.
even around Coppers, BK. I love those guys are just workhorses.
For sure.
Casey, my roommate, that guy has an iron shoulder, who actually traveled with the A team years before.
Right.
Um, those guys, they don't settle for good. They're all trying to be great. They're all trying to push to get to that next level. So being in that atmosphere, you have no choice but to step up.
Right.
So I remember what it would have been a good practice for me at FTC was sometimes my lousiest or worst practices at the B team, because
Right.
like what the level you brought there isn't going to be enough to what you bring here, because now you're
Hmm.
playing against international teams. So understanding that whatever level you get to, there's always a step up. Pretty much was the mindset I took with me to the B team.
For sure.
Understanding there's outsides who are good, great. I'm in a gym with a lot of people who can be on the court. And even understanding, as great as you play, you still got to be consistent, because when it comes to playing now, there's still 4 or 5 other outsides you got to beat out before you get on the court.
Exactly. Yeah.
So pretty much that push of every day you got to bring your A game pretty much helps you wake up every day and say, hey, today's my chance to be better.
And I guess for your first experience for international play, is there one specific player that maybe like one play that had you kind of shocked or astonished and kind of made you feel like welcome to playing like at the highest level?
Uh, um, I think it was probably playing against Argentina. They had this little 30-year-old outside. And little, I mean, I'm 6'4", considered little, so
Yeah.
little is relative. He was maybe 6 feet, 6'1", but that guy was a scoring machine. I've never seen somebody find hands in any set all the time until I saw him play. Every ball he got, he was just
Right.
hands, hands, hands. And the second the hands were gone, he was just finding floor. And he's actually a very physical player, even at his size. And the biggest thing I saw
Mm-hmm.
was when the physicality wears away, that's when you start seeing the knowledge. And then you see the great players who have a combination of the physical and the knowledge. Like playing against Cuba, those guys are super physical. I mean,
Yeah, they're
those guys,
huge,
they
right?
don't
They're all
believe in roll
huge.
shots and tips. They
Yeah.
believe in harder, hard and harder.
Yeah.
So even seeing guys take balls like 4 meters off the net and they're still trying to hit a 100K attack, just seeing the level is different where somebody else in a different gym,
Right.
the ball's off the net, free ball over or 50%.
Right.
So understanding that you got to be on your A game all the time from whistle to whistle. Sorry, not even that. From beginning of the game to end. Because if you check out whistle to whistle, you may not be ahead of the point for the next one.
For sure.
So even understanding that, um, just seeing how crazy the level can get. I remember last tournament in Colorado, um, the little right side, little opposite from Cuba, very fire player, Lopez, he hit a serve, I think, or maybe it was a C ball. Never seen this before. It hit off the floor, the back wall, and came back over the net. And it
Right.
wasn't a small gym. It was at the training center in Colorado, the USA
Right.
Training
Which
Center.
is which has to be a
So
big
just seeing
facility.
someone like, yeah, so just seeing him rifle that ball so fast, you just understand that when you get that level, there's just different beasts you're playing against. And that's also it's a big wake-up call.
For sure.
Understanding you're not just playing against the players in your gym, you're playing against the crazy athletes there are out there in other countries.
For sure. And then moving towards kind of your experience in Germany, um, kind of maybe you can walk me through
Germany
what
was
a
a
typical day looks like there.
sorry.
Maybe you can walk me through what a typical day looks like there.
In the beginning, there was a lot of travel in preseason. We went to 5 different countries in preseason. Um, because our coach was international, he's from Belgium, so he knew a lot of Belgian teams from other countries, just dealing with teams outside of Germany.
Mm-hmm.
So we ended up doing a lot of traveling to Switzerland. And understanding the level of ball is different everywhere you go. Like the French play different style than the Germans, different style than the Dutch. So that was a pretty interesting experience. Like even at the best levels, everybody still has their go-to style of volleyball.
Right.
Um, Average day, same thing. Usually outside, doing a lot of reception. Our coach took a lot of pride in reception. Even when the coaches had the day off, the manager has the day off, receivers had to be in the gym. Receivers never, ever
Never.
had
They
days
didn't get
off.
a day off. They're
Never.
always in there.
Reception, 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 reception. Um, when it came to level of ball, playing against a lot of big time players like the Ben Patch, the Kyle Insings, the middles like Jendrick,
Yeah.
a lot of other top setters, outsides. Another wake up call, just seeing the players you got to battle against. Because being an outside, your biggest challenge is handling that opposite.
For sure.
So if you
Yeah.
can't help out, slow them down, then they're going to have a field day because usually opposites make a lot of money because their job is to score.
Yeah. Score and put
If
the
you don't
ball
have
away.
scoring opposite, if you don't have scoring opposite, the game completely changes. So, um, at one point, me and our other outside were tied with one of our middles for blocks.
Mm-hmm.
So just seeing like how the game changes when you actually have people who understand the game, who buy into the system. So it's not just, and what I say, blocking should never just be you against the attacker. There should be one of them versus the six of you.
Right.
So pretty much seeing how in the beginning of the season where everybody is different players, from different countries, like USA, Japan, I was from Canada, some guys from Germany, all around, coming together, all of a sudden, we're taking big teams to 5, we're taking other teams to 4, or we're actually beating teams that we weren't supposed to beat on paper.
Right.
So the biggest experience was actually seeing on a whole different level of people from everywhere can actually come together and create something special.
Mm-hmm.
Like before I got there, they didn't do so well the previous year. And all of a sudden, we made history beating this team. We made history taking sets off with them in this gym. So Germany was a really good experience. I got a chance to see what it was like to play professionally, especially in the first division in Germany.
For sure.
Yeah, it was a lot. But at the same time, a lot of what I learned before there actually helped me propel forward. Not much difference. Just the physicality changes as you get to a different level. The game gets faster.
Right. And then I guess my last two questions for you are, what would be some future goals for you? Like, do you maybe, like, obviously, I'm sure you want to strive to make the A team, right? I'm sure there's maybe a certain league or a team
Yeah.
you want to play on, maybe coaching, something along the lines there.
I always want to give back. I mean, Jesse said it a billion times. I always want to give back to Pac-Man.
Mm-hmm.
They really taught me a lot. So ultimately, I respect the mindset they have. Like, especially, I'll never forget in 17U, Kelly said his goal wasn't just nationals gold or a national medal or provincial medal.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, when I see you guys playing for your varsity teams, being in your degree program and still playing, getting a scholarship, helping pay for your future education, like that would make him happy. So at the end of the day, I could be the Greg Popovich and have a billion medals, but he took it further. Like, he wants to see his players succeed past volleyball, or if it is volleyball, as far as they can. So I really respect the mindset Kelly carries, and you actually see it in how he talks to his coaching staff and how he carries himself. Right. I remember our coaching staff alone, every Thursday night they'd go out for wings together.
Right.
So just seeing him as a head coach doing those little things to help make sure his whole coaching staff is on the same page. So ultimately I want to give back, especially running some of their housey camps with them and seeing how everything is structured. It's not just you come in, okay guys, these are the 6 positions, that's how you rotate. They had everything structured properly. The players came in. These kids are all learning how to pass, receive.
Yeah.
And at the end of it, you guys are playing a full 6-on-6 game. The ball's not hitting the floor.
Yeah, the ball's not hitting the floor.
You guys calling for ball exiting, full 3-step approach. And I was like, this is different. And ultimately, the pool of players for the national program is pretty small because, it's the top players from here, players with programs and clubs like Pac-Man. If they keep doing what they're doing with the development stage all the way up to creating the players they do, ultimately that's bringing up the level and making the pool of players to pick from a lot more broad. But even at the junior tryouts alone, I see Nav Reed. Nav, a lot of Pac-Man players were in that gym. And a lot of them actually made the team, but understanding that now it's not just, when I was playing, it was Terrell, and Andre Brown. Now it's seeing players who are doing big things, even from the A team to the B team, all the way down to the junior team and the youth team.
Just
understanding that
right?
it's not just, they're provincial champions or, they produce good clubs. They're actually producing players who are going out there, making a name for themselves, helping their country do better. So that's the biggest thing I appreciate about the club. So I always want to give back and help the younger athletes pretty much get to the next level.
For sure. And then I guess the last thing is some advice just for younger athletes.
So I was saying hi to Mitch, my middle team captain. My advice for younger athletes, everything is a stepping stone. If today you don't know how to pass, doesn't mean you can't go home and learn, the ball control or how to control your platform.
Right.
Never take an obstacle as a chance to fail. And one of the biggest things I learned from a teammate of mine who's actually a ref, He said referees are never wrong. They're either right or they learn.
Right.
And I think that's how you should approach every aspect of the game. If you make a mistake, don't take it as failure. Take it as a chance to learn, a chance to be better. And that's the biggest thing I'd say to the younger generation. A lot of people get discouraged by failure. And it's good to fail because it just shows you that there's something you can be better at. If
Right.
I lose to any team in preseason or in the first tournament, doesn't mean we can't beat them 3-0 in the finals at nationals or provincials.
Right.
So take everything as a learning experience. When you lose, yes, you lost that day, you lost that moment. But what can we do now to help us make sure we don't lose next time? Or even in the next practice, what can I do to make sure I never experience this feeling again?
Right.
So that's not what I try to do. Everything I take, it should never be failure. It's what can I learn from this?
Right.
And the second thing that's super important are the off-court stuff. If I'm trying to come to practice and have the best practice of my life, but I had chips and cookies all day and I was playing Call of Duty all night, there's going to be no chance that I'm going to perform properly for those 2 to 3 hours.
For sure.
So what a lot of clubs are implementing, the nutrition side and the mental side, when the score is 24-24 or 25-24 and you're going back there to serve, you're a spin server, are you going to be the player who underhand serves or standing float? Or are you going to be the player that says, hey, I practiced this 100 times. Coach says, maybe run suicide before spin serving, and now I have the chance to rip my serve. That's the off-court stuff, like the mental game, the nutrition. I think that's what will help the next generation push past even where we are and where the people are now. Enhancing that off-the-court stuff.
For sure. Thank you so much for coming on. That was awesome.
No problem. Anytime.
Best of luck next year. And hopefully we'll see you around coaching.
Of course, I'll be back. Remember, I said I'll be back.
All right.
Later.
All right, guys. So on Friday we have Coach Kareem come on. Coach Kareem started playing for the club when he was 18U. Spent some time playing for the York Lions, where he was the team captain, and also spent some time playing in the One Volleyball League. So we're excited to have him on Friday.